And now for something very special for all of you. You know, it's not too often that we get to ask questions of two super successful business leaders and who are happy to share with us in a very direct and intimate and honest way the secrets to their success and the lessons that made them so successful, and what they learned along the way, and some things that maybe were kind of hard on that pathway to the top. So I'm very happy to introduce to all of you and welcome into the stage Sandy Weill and Ajay Banga. Sandy, you're going to sit in the middle, and Ajay at the end there. I'm going to sit here.
I can't sit over there.
Do you play?
Yeah.
Thank you so much, both of you, for doing this. And let me just start by saying, before we all gathered here, we were in a room with, I don't know how many, maybe 50 students. And I thought they were very sharp. They asked a lot of good questions. What stood out for you, Sandy?
I think what stood out for me is how thoughtful these young people are. And they really have thought out what they want to do next. And they've really, I think, accomplished a lot.
And they're only high school students.
And they're only high school, yes. But I think, in a way, a lot of them are very lucky that they didn't grow up with a silver spoon. And they have the strength and the stick-to-itiveness to get as far as they have so far. And I think most of them really look at change, and we're living in a world that's changing all the time, but they look at change as an opportunity rather than something to be fearful of. So
yeah, it's very impressive, very inspiring. Ajay, what stood out for you? What was your takeaway as you were?
Tough questions. There was this lady she was the first one. I kind of looked at her and said, I'll get an easy question from her. She had 6 questions ready, and she went like, okay, I'm going to go through the first one. And so what stood out for me was, I guess, one, they are just incredibly inspiring because they haven't got what I had when I was lucky enough to be growing up, but they're making it for themselves. And all that these kids want, I was talking to a number of them after that, all that they want is a chance to be able to show that they can be as good as any one of us. And I think they deserve that chance. And that kind of is what inspires me about these kids. I found it really good.
You know, a lot of kids today, and not just high school, but college too, they feel like they have to have a plan, where they're going to be, what they're going to do next, and then stick to that plan no matter what. Now, you said that's not the way to go. Tell us why.
Well, I think that you can overplan your career and it doesn't take you anywhere. And I think the right thing to do, for example, if you ask a young kid who's out of college or school, what are you going to be in 10 years? How the heck can they answer you with truth? And yet all our companies, all our interviewers think that's a good question to answer. And it's a stupid, dumb question. because if I knew today what I wanted to be in 10 years, I'd be Sandy. And I'm not. So I wish I knew, but I'm not. So he's an old friend. I can pull his leg.
So I don't know where I want to be in 10 years either.
See, that's the problem.
I want to be you.
Yeah. You may get a beard and a turban, Sandy. I'll give you one.
I'm willing to try.
Well, some of you missed out on this, but Sandy had a great story to these kids when we were talking about planning, and he said that Warren Buffett knew at a very young age that his goal was, I want to be rich. And he succeeded. He's one of the richest men in the world. Sandy is rich too, and he hit all of his goals, but he had a different strategy. You told a very cute story about you and Joan when you were first married, and what was number one on your priority list?
Well, our first goal was to buy a deep fryer.
And the second goal was?
It really is true. And
but I have a point to make there. You can see Sandy and Joan. That deep fryer was not for Joan, it was for Sandy. I just want to be clear.
Yeah, that's true. But I couldn't afford to change the oil, so you.
But you got to hear what the second goal was after you got the deep fryer.
Our next goal in life was to be able to buy a Kodak slide projector, which is for those of you that don't know, it's the equivalent of the old days of an iPhone. and you know, and basically that's the way we run our life. We've looked and set out goals that were achievable, and as we got near achieving that goal, we moved out the goalpost, and we moved out the goalpost, and we moved out the goalpost. And now, 62 years later, we're still moving out the goalpost. And it is one hell of a lot of fun.
What I want to ask you, though, Sandy, and actually what's interesting about you two guys, you have known each other for a really long time. Actually, Sandy recruited Ajay to Citigroup, for those of you who don't know that, and you worked together for many years, but you have very different backgrounds. Ajay, you grew up in India. You did all of your schooling and advanced learning, everything in India. You're a Brooklyn boy. You went to Cornell University. You're a product of American education system, but you have some very similar ideas. And what I want to find out from both of you is, what was it in your growing up years that you think this way? I mean, what was the most important lesson that you learned that set you on the right path for success?
Well, you know, I wasn't...
The most important thing. Don't give the long list.
Okay. Okay.
They said we only have 20 minutes for this conversation.
Okay. That's why I'm trying to drag it out. But basically, I think the thing that was best for me, because I was a very poor student, and my parents moved back to New York after World War II, and there was a shortage of housing, so they sent me away to military school for a year, and then hopefully they would have a house. But I really flourished in that environment and learned how to take discipline before I became a disciplinarian. And I really learned, I think, more about what has helped me in later life in that 4 years of a military school education than I learned in college. College, I learned about women.
Joan didn't hear that. She didn't hear that. She's not paying attention to you. She's heard this story earlier.
But basically, the smartest thing I did, and advice I would give to anybody here, is before you get married, pick the right person, because if you don't make a mistake on that first one, you are much better off. And Joni and I are going to be married 62 years in June.
I heard you.
Joan said maybe. We've done all 62 of the years a day at a time. But I've learned that the best way to really have a relationship with a great woman, and she's really made my life really phenomenal and been very important to my success, is 2 words: yes, dear. And Ajay has had the same kind of luck.
I'm saying yes, dear, to him, let alone to my wife.
Here, all these kids came looking for some real pearls of wisdom, and you're giving marital advice. But anyway, Ajay, for you know, really different life experience. You came to the United States when you were really a fully grown adult and already in the executive ranks. But what did your parents teach you? What did your teachers teach you? What did you learn back in India that made you so successful today?
Oh, I don't know about the successful and connection, but I do remember one clear aspect of growing up with my father. My father was in the Indian Army, and he was successful. He was a 3-star general, and by the time he retired, and I remember right from my childhood that he could speak to the guard at our gate with the same intensity of interest as he spoke to a visiting dignitary. And I'll never forget that. I see it in him. I was describing the story outside that Sandy would care about you no matter who you were. And my dad had that. And I think this concept of caring about people with the humility to realize that everybody can help you learn about something that you don't know for yourself is kind of what I feel really good about. And that I got from my dad.
That's great. That's great.
And I'd like to add to what you say, Ajay, in that I'm not a believer in decks. I'm a believer in people understanding
Correct.
about what they are working on so that they can explain it not reading speeches, but talking from the heart. And I've been sort of very lucky in that our company at its biggest point when I was there, we had about 240,000 employees in over 100 countries. And I was a person that didn't know how to use a computer, and I still don't. I didn't know how to send email, which saved our company billions of dollars. But I did know.
That's true.
I did know how to walk around, and I knew tens of thousands of people in the company, really. I knew their families, and my wife knew their families. We included spouses in planning what the company was going to do, so that we had two people that supported what the person that was working with us knew and was doing, because we're in a stressful business. And when the person came home, whether it was a he or a she from our company, the other partner understood what was happening. And we built something, and I knew what was going on in that business without having all the tools that make it so efficient today.
Well, now that you bring up the part about the computer, I just want to share with everybody, when we were talking to the students earlier, both of these guys said the importance of technology. Sandy said everybody should know how to code. And he didn't know how to use a computer, do an email, but everybody should know how to code. And Ajay said that everyone should learn about technology and get comfortable with it early on. But you guys know that a lot of kids today say, I'm not good at math, I'm not good at science. And so teachers and parents say, you know, okay, how about history, how about music, how about something else? What, if this is so important, science, technology, engineering, and math, what do parents and teachers and students have to do to make it, as you said, it's your friend. You said technology is your friend.
Well, I think, first of all, I don't think that technology is something that you should think of only as STEM. I believe that if you're in HR and you don't really use STEM every day, technology is going to embrace you and change your life in ways that are unimaginable over the next decade. Whether you're in finance, you're in HR, you're in operations, you're in good old-fashioned ONT, technology is both your friend and your tool of capability. So I think you've got to be very careful of that. The second thing is, you talked about teachers and students, didn't mention principals. And I was saying this to a few kids outside. My opinion is that the schooling system doesn't pay enough attention to the quality of the leader of the school. In companies, we pay a lot of attention to the quality of the leader of the company to say that that leader makes a difference. In countries, we pay attention, although we make mistakes with our voting sometimes, but we pay attention to the quality of the leader of a country. But in schools, for some reason, the principal is never talked about. And I find that a really strange thing to do. I think the leader of a school can transform the way that kids embrace technology and embrace change and embrace challenge if we were to invest in the leader of the school in the right way.
Anything you want to add to that, Sandy? Any advice you have on this?
I think Ajay is absolutely dead right about leadership is really very important. I think as you think about things, you should think, who wants to follow a negative person? Like nobody. So figure out a way to always be positive, but realistically positive. People like to follow people that are positive, and really I think it's embrace change, because use change as your ally rather than, as I said before, being fearful of it. And really ethics and areas like that are very, very important. Tell the truth. It's the easiest thing to remember. And if you make a mistake, don't cover it up, because the cover-up is always worse than the accident that happened. Just ask Richard Nixon if he still was able to tell you. And really, I think the opportunity for everybody in this country, this is a great time to be living. And great things are going to happen. And you guys are going to be the people that lead this country. So don't be afraid about picking up the challenge and learning things and continuing to learn things and become the leaders of the future, because it's really up to you. And that's why we spend so much time training you and with this program, because you know, we do not have the people that are educated for our jobs. But as we embrace technology, let's not make technology so smart that they will throw us out of all our new engineering jobs that we got through technology.
Well, you know, you're talking about education. Now, most of the kids here are about to graduate from high school, so high school is taken care of. But in this changing workplace, things are happening so fast. What's the basic education you need? They've got high school, but what about college? What about graduate school? What about MBAs and all of that? I mean, we see so many success stories. Mark Zuckerberg dropped out and is a gazillionaire. Bill Gates, the same story. But what's your advice on what's the basic amount of education you really need to be competitive and successful in this marketplace? Ajay?
So I think for every Bill Gates and Mark Zuckerberg that dropped out of college, you don't hear about the 99,000 others who are hanging around doing nothing. So I wouldn't go by that. I just wouldn't. I think an education is what allows you to feel proud of what you're doing and who you are and to discover what's inside you. So I would never take an education away from anybody. But what I am saying is that I'm not sure that everybody's going to make their own choices. An MBA, a PhD, a master's in engineering, a college degree, vocational school. I just don't know that the right answer is that everybody needs to go to college, or that everybody needs an MBA, or that everybody needs to become a lawyer, God forbid, for those of you who are lawyers in this room. I apologize in advance, but you know, I live in a company where I deal with litigation all day long, and I hate the whole lot. So that's a different topic. But if you were to think about what you need, I'll give you an example. What's the biggest gap in terms of skill sets I would like to be able to fill in the next 5 years in my company? Cybersecurity professionals. I don't need an engineering master's for cybersecurity professionals. A kid out of high school who has 2 years in a good technical training institute with comprehension, like a young man I met here today who gets programming and gets information technology and who understands hacking and understands software and is willing to go work for 2 years with, say, a government organization like the NSA or the CIA, not the Department of Homeland Security, because they think I'm Osama bin Laden, they don't know anything. Right? So that's bad guys. But if you go work for the CIA or the NSA and you actually learn something, and then after 2-3 years, you're willing to come to work for someone like me, I'll waive your student loans. I'll waive your student loans. And that to me is how business and the public sector can get together to make a difference for these kids who I think are our future and have the ability to transform the lives of my kids as well as their own. That's what I'm talking about.
Let's hear, Sandy, what you think. High school education enough if you're really savvy, like what this kid that Ajay met?
Well, I think it all depends. I'd like to say that really, I've been around a long time, but I'm continuing to learn. And Joan and I flew out to California the day that Mark Zuckerberg was going to announce a $3 billion gift for basic science. And I had never witnessed somebody giving away $3 billion at one time. And so we decided to go. And we heard him, he and his wife, talking about how they hope to control or eradicate all disease with the starting $3 billion by the end of the century. Well, I've never thought that big. So this guy's 32 years old. I'm learning from him. He's getting me to change my whole thinking. He also is interested in high school education, like everybody is here. So I've been talking to him about, and he has a program where he has 16 of his engineers from Facebook working on writing new algorithms as to change the method of teaching in our high schools, where we would teach individual students and teach to everybody go at their own pace, so that people that are really, really bright could move ahead very, very fast, and people that are slower can move at the pace that they want to, and not teaching to the lowest common denominator. So while before I met him, we're thinking about, geez, wouldn't it be great over the next 5 years that we could raise the money that that JD was talking about, and we can grow NAF from 100,000 students that we have today to 125,000 students, and have a better quality control and have more people, the great percentage of our people, getting summer internships. After meeting him, I've changed my mind. And now I'm thinking about how can we go from 100,000 students, how can we educate 1 million, 2 million, 5 million students and really make a difference? And I think that's our objective.
So think big,
Pretty
dream
cool.
big. That's a great lesson. You know, Ajay.
And I don't have to the end of this century to do it, so.
Did you hear that,
Meanwhile,
JD?
JD has a monumental headache right now. That's it.
You know, Ajay, you were talking about you have 300,000 applications every year, and you just take a small percentage of it. And you were also just talking, I would hire a kid who could do X, Y, Z. A lot of the kids here, now they've mastered to finishing high school, but they've got to get a job. And many of them are ill-prepared for going on those job interviews and are all thumbs. What is the question you always ask in a job interview? And what's the answer that lands the job?
So there's actually not a single question I ask, but I do spend a lot of time getting to understand a person's background and family. I look for people who find that they need what they're going to come and do with me. I want people who need things. I want people who will be hungry for the opportunity so long as they get a level playing field, which I promise them they will get. As far as I'm concerned, just imagine, if you look the way I look and you run a big American company of a fairly large size, which has done well over the last few years, the one thing I truly believe in, I don't care where you came from, I don't care what you look like. I really care what you do and how you do it. That's all I care about. That I will explore in the interview. And if you don't give me the right answers on your experiences and what to do and how to do, there is no way I'm going to hire you.
Sandy, what about you? I'm sure you interviewed a lot of people, not just the executive level, but on all levels. What's the one question, your favorite one question in a job interview, and then what's the answer?
Let me tell you, let me talk about...
Oh, you need your microphone.
No, let me talk about hiring people at a relatively high level from the outside. What I like to do is meet the person with their spouse and have my wife come along with me. And when we're talking about things, I'm trying to sell this person to come work for us and not really paying attention to the things I should pay attention to. Joan's a very good listener, so I find out, you know, when we go home, whether this person was any good or not any good. And let me tell you, it works 99% of the time. You know, it's really important, as Ajay mentioned, to get to know a family. And I think that a company, whether you have 4 people or 400,000, the better you can create a family-feeling kind of environment, the better that company's going to do. The better you create a feeling of teamwork and that teams win, and this is not a star system, that company will do better.
We have run out of time, but I just want to ask one last question to wrap it up. And I know that a lot of the people who are here, these kids, dream that one day they will be successful like both of you. And you know, it's not only because you run successful companies, but you've had a very positive impact in your communities. So if you could just give one piece of advice to these young kids about, in just a few words, what would it be? What's your best advice to these young adults?
I would say that don't just think about the business, but think about how you can use your brain power that is really making you a good person in the business you're doing and successful in the business. Think about your community from the very, very beginning. Think about how you can be philanthropic, which is not about giving money, but it's about giving of your brains and your leadership and making the community a better place. And that will help your standing in the company. It will help the respect that your fellow workers have for you, and it will really make a difference. And as you grow, continue to do that, because companies should use their strength to help make the communities better. Our country, the federal government has no money, the states have no money, the cities have no money. As a matter of fact, we've promised more things than we'll ever have the money for. So it's really important that we have public-private partnerships where the private sector works along with the public sector and really holds, when you contribute your time and your money, you're going to hold the people that you're working with to a higher standard than they used to. And that's going to end up creating a much better environment and much better performance.
Very, very interesting, very interesting. Ajay, you've had a little time to think while Sandy was talking.
I'll tell you what I've been saying inside the company for a little while. Everybody's heard about IQ and EQ. I talk about DQ, and DQ is not Warren Buffett's ice cream. DQ is what I call decency quotient. And what do I mean by decency quotient? I mean all the things Sandy just said. I just think it's a way for people to understand that you have to be able to go to sleep at night knowing that you were a good person that day, you did the best you could do, and you dealt with people with fairness and with decency. I think our decency quotient defines the status of our civilization. And I'm a little concerned about decency quotient in different parts of our system. But DQ really, really matters. So if you're young and you're growing up in this country, you're lucky enough to be here, it's the best country in the world to be. You should know that your DQ will determine how well you do in your life, not your IQ or your EQ.
And let me just... Let me just sum up that your DQ would have improved a lot if you were a shareholder of Ajay's company over the last 8 years, because you would be up 10 times on your money, and that is a hell of a lot better than what Warren Buffett has ever done. And Sandy.
Thank you so much, Sandy and Ajay. Let's give them a hand.
Love it.
Thank you so much.